So hi, I'm Rachel Nelson. I'm super excited to be able to talk to you about the My Bible First curriculum. I have some people who are going to be helping me in this presentation. I have Ruthie Reeves. If you could wave your hand, Ruthie. That is my sister. And in a few minutes, Michelle Coy will be joining us, and she's going to be talking about how to tell a vivacious Bible story. So I'm really, really excited. I'm just going to give you a little brief history of My Bible First, and then I've got a couple videos to show you. We're going to talk about the curriculum. My Bible First started in my basement with my grandmother after we had some very new converts to Adventism who weren't even Christians prior and didn't know anything about the Bible. And we looked around for some resources that would help them and their children to really understand the scope and sequence of the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, and ground them in the Bible and in how the Bible points us to Jesus and Jesus' soon second coming. So she had for many years developed child education materials for the Philippines, Singapore, Far Eastern Asia division. And so she used those materials and then developed a 3-year cycle for the primary age, going from Genesis to Revelation, with daily segments broken up into Sunday through Friday. We started using it in our church.
Michelle
it quickly
is here.
Spread. Wonderful. Welcome, Michelle. It quickly spread throughout by word of mouth, and literally overnight, we had a business producing children's Bible lessons. They are used in schools, they're used in homeschools, they're used in about a third of the churches in the North American division actually use them for their Sabbath schools. They are officially endorsed and approved by the General Conference. The Biblical Research Institute has reviewed them and have approved them. And they are a wonderful, wonderful resource. We have materials starting in cradle roll all the way through youth, and all of them are designed to get children into the Bible, to develop a relationship with Jesus for themselves, to fall in love with Jesus themselves, and to get in the habit of daily devotions. So Michelle Coy is going to be helping me, Ruthie Reeves, and I'm very excited to share with you today. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to start by, you know what, I need to stop share and share my screen again because I need to optimize for video clips. And let's make sure you all can hear this. So I'm going to play. All right. Can you all see this and hear it?
Yes.
Okay.
So many ways to start my day, so many things to do, places to go and people to see, chores and schoolwork too. I will spend time with Jesus, open my Bible and pray. First thing in the morning, I'll hear what God will say. Through stories and history, prophecies too, in a book, chapter and verse, through poetry, letters and songs of praise, I'll read my Bible first. Line by line and verse by verse, I'll read my Bible first. I'll read my Bible first.
Whoops. There we go. So I always like to begin with prayer. So if you could bow your heads with me, we'll start with prayer. Dear Father in heaven, I'm just so grateful that we have this opportunity to meet together. I just pray that you will be with me as I share about My Bible First and the powerful impact it can have in children's lives, changing children's lives for you. In Jesus' name, amen. So Here's an outline of our presentation tonight. We're going to overview of My Bible First. I'll talk about some new exciting materials we have. We'll talk about some teaching helps, and then Michelle is going to share some teachers' tips on teaching Sabbath school. And then Ruthie is going to talk about some tips for remote Sabbath schools. We'll have questions and wrap up. So we'll start with an overview.
The most effective pulpit in the church is the children's Sabbath school pulpit. And the purpose of My Bible First is to evangelize our own children in our own families and churches. The most lasting evangelistic effort in the church can be the Sabbath school. My Bible First Sabbath school materials lead our children to Jesus and prepare them to be missionaries for Him. And with Jesus in their hearts, our children become effective evangelists in their homes and to their friends. The emphasis of each lesson is the great controversy between Christ and Satan, the plan of salvation, and how to choose Jesus. All the materials work together to reach this goal so that our children and youth understand the temptations they face. The material is designed to strengthen family worships and prepare the children for active participation in their Sabbath school. My Bible First starts with a one-year cycle for beginners. This focuses on the familiar stories that interest our tiny tots. Kindergarten lessons go through the Bible chronologically in a 3-year cycle. Primary lessons also follow the same story cycle as the kindergarten, but are more advanced. There are daily segments with practical applications for family worship and devotions. The junior lessons 3-year cycle goes into much more detail and includes the minor prophets. It also closes with Christian church history covering the apostasy, the Reformation, and the rise of the Advent movement, and the development and progress of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. By the end of the junior lessons, students understand why they are Seventh-day Adventists. The youth lessons cover Bible-based topical subjects that are relevant to young people today, such as relationships, prophecy, Christian lifestyle, church history, and more. Each My Bible First lesson has a nature object lesson story for each age group. This teaches the children how God speaks to them through His second book, Nature. While the Bible should hold the first place in the education of children and youth, the book of nature is next in importance. God's Creation Declares is a series that contains interesting nature devotionals filled with spiritual lessons for children. Many teachers' helps and aids are available to assist teachers and parents. There are memory verse songs and booklets for beginners through juniors, as well as large classroom-sized memory verse flip charts. A detailed to scale timeline helps children understand the span of Bible and prophetic history. 30 teaching posters enlarge key information in the Bible lessons. Activity sheets review the lessons of each week in interesting ways. Bible lesson picture books illustrate each week's lesson story. Not shown are the teaching helps with a detailed program outline for the entire Sabbath school time, as well as the lesson teaching guide. A three-dimensional Daniel 2 model is a great tool for visual teaching and reviewing the prophecies. Children love worshiping God through singing visualized songs. Each song is illustrated with words and pictures instilling Bible truths and character-building principles. Accompaniment CDs are all available. Learning about books thoroughly teach the doctrines of the Bible at a kindergarten primary level. They're excellent for family worships and children's personal devotions. My Bible First lessons have been reviewed and approved by the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. My Bible First is developing free material and activities to download from their website. The lessons will soon be available for the children to listen to online. The My Bible First website is mybiblefirst.org. Digitalized lessons are available now. Check out the website, mybiblefirst.org, for much more material for child evangelism. Our phone number is 1-877-242-5317. We would love to hear from you.
So that's a brief overview of the My Bible First materials. Now I'd like to tell you about some exciting new materials that we have. One of the first ones is Starting with Jesus at startingwithjesus.com, and I'm going to go there so you can see it. Startingwithjesus.com uses My Bible First materials, and this is a wonderful, wonderful resource for your families and churches. We have a daily devotional podcast that children can use for their personal devotions or families can use for family worship. It's called Seed Pod, and it's released daily for kids that are aged 4 through 10. And it's released 2 times a week for beginners. For our older children, we have Juniors for Jesus. And that, again, utilizing the My Bible First Junior lessons, is also released as a daily recording that children can listen to their junior lesson every single day. They're about 3 minutes long, and it's a great for devotions or for a family worship for children. We have the memory verse, and then we also have different challenges, different activities, and free coloring pages for the junior age group. Very, very exciting. We have a Renew, which is for parents. And again, it goes along with the kindergarten primary lessons, and it's a resource for children, for parents who want to dig a little deeper but aren't able to go to the adult Sabbath school class. So I've shared this with all my kindergarten parents, and they absolutely love it. And it's got an interactive blog spot that if it will pull up here, my internet's a little slow, that allows for interaction for parents to actually interact with other parents about the lesson. So it's a really, really great resource for families, for new Christians, new Adventists. It's just a wonderful resource. The other thing I wanted to talk about is on mybiblefirst.org. We have links to the lessons every week that are read, the same thing that are on Starting with Jesus. But I'm really excited that we have memory verse songs now. And I actually have a sample song here. Let's see. Yes, I'm going to play it for you. So all of our memory verses are now recorded to song, and I'm really excited because kids learn so well with singing.
For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him.
So that's just a little sample of our songs. I'm very excited about them, and they're also, you can hear them free on startingwithjesus.com. They are included in those daily devotional podcasts. So those kids that are listening every day to the daily devotional podcast, by the end of the week, they know their memory verse. And I just have to give a little testimony. I have a little kindergarten child who hadn't been attending church for a long time because of COVID, but praise the Lord, they've started attending again. And I gave his parents the resources at Starting with Jesus with the My Bible First materials, and he started listening to the podcast and the music, and he was so excited, came to me a couple Sabbaths ago and said, "Teacher Rachel, I know my memory verse and I can say it." And he said it right to me, and I was so excited. He was so excited because I think that was one of the first times he'd actually learned his entire memory verse, and he was so proud of himself, and I was so proud of him too. And I was so excited because he's hiding God's word in his mind through scripture, and that's just so important. We also have VBS programs that we do, and we're actually going to be talking about the On Guard Vacation Bible School that we've done. We have The Creator is My Friend, we have Plug into Power, and then we have VBS On Guard. And I just wanted to play you the theme song for our On Guard VBS because I just love it so much.
There is a castle inside of us. It is the castle of our hearts. And Jesus wants to sit upon the throne and give us love and joy and peace and power. So be on guard, guard the gates leading into your soul. Be careful what you see and smell and hear, and what you eat, what you touch, what you think and you say. Be on guard, keep the watch night and day.
So that's just a little sneak peek. It's a really great program. And the neat thing about our On Guard VBS program is all the Bible verses that the kids learn have been put to music. And we have music for them to learn about how to guard their castle from Mr. Satan and keep him from stealing their joy and love and peace and power that we get from our wonderful Savior, Jesus Christ. We have some new Bible doctrine lessons that are really great, excellent baptismal preparation for junior age. They go through all 28 fundamental beliefs. And the thing I love about these doctrine lessons is they point children to Jesus as the reason that Seventh-day Adventists believe each of our doctrines. They end with, we believe this doctrine because Jesus taught this doctrine, and we show how Jesus teaches this doctrine and how all the doctrines point to Jesus, and how by loving Jesus, we accept the truths that Jesus gives us. So I just love how it brings everybody back to Jesus. And all of these doctrine lessons have also been recorded, so children can actually listen to them as well. And the recordings are absolutely free. The whole purpose of My Bible First is to bring children to the foot of the cross so that they fall in love with Jesus. And they realize that Jesus is the reason that we can do anything in our lives. And if we have a transforming relationship with Jesus, he will change us and make us into his image. And that's the goal of My Bible First. We have wonderful teaching helps. And right now I want to turn the time over to Michelle, who's going to give us some teaching tips. Michelle is a master educator. So Michelle, I'm turning the time over to you, and I will advance your slides as needed.
Thank you. Can you guys all hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. Well, hello everybody from cold and snowy Michigan. I hope that you're all enjoying the warm weather down there. You have to send some up to me if you think of it. My name is, like she said, I have my bachelor's in elementary education. I have my background is in camp ministry, Sabbath school ministry, ministry in the classroom, teaching elementary grades, but also working with children of all ages, and also most recently mom for 3 years, and working now with Starting with Jesus Ministries. So that kind of gives you an idea of my background. If we could go to the next slide. All right, so that's a little bit about me. I have 2 kiddos of my own, and their names are Josiah and Allie, and so we're very blessed to have them. And I'm going to go ahead and start with another prayer to ask the Holy Spirit to be with me as I speak with you guys. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so very much for your love for us and that you call us your kids. Wow, we are so blessed. Please do this now, because we just want to do better each and every day, Lord. Even if it's one little thing that we can change, that I can change to better reach kids, we want to do it. We thank you. May we pray. Amen. All right. So I am currently a stay-at-home mom, but have taught for 6 years. And so over the years, I have accrued some tips for teaching, and some of them are from some really great books I'm going to share with you too. First of all, I'd like you to reflect back on your Sabbath school experience. And what was your favorite Sabbath school teacher? Probably someone pops into your head right away. Or maybe if you didn't go to Sabbath school as a kid, maybe your Sunday school teacher, or maybe even a current Sabbath school teacher that you really think is awesome. And think about why it was that they were your favorite. Next slide. While you're thinking about that, I wanted to share mine with you. And her name was Mrs. DeVries. She was our kindergarten teacher at the church for years. I know over 40, maybe over 50 years, she was the kindergarten teacher at our church. And she just made everything so special, and she went all out. Like her programs, she was constantly doing the extra things. We had a Noah's Ark pool party at her house every summer that we would look forward to, and she just always made us feel so special. Next slide. You can see me in the middle there, taking my little rake and raking. Here's our pool party, and she was there all the way with me and supporting me all the way. There's a picture of her at my baptism, and actually soon thereafter she passed away, and she's always been a huge role model in my life. One of my most special Bibles, as we all have our special Bibles, is from her. Next slide. So when we think about those mentors, we want to try to emulate them in our lives. And also some other people that have really influenced myself as both a Sabbath school teacher and just a teacher and a mom in general are the people over at Love and Logic. I don't know if you guys have heard of them before. They're really awesome. And I wanted to share with you guys some overview. Maybe it'll pique your interest that you want to learn more. Maybe you'll just take some tips from this presentation and run with them. So this next tips, I guess my source would be Teaching with Love and Logic. Next slide. All right, at Love and Logic, they're about just those two things. And I'm going to share with you guys now 5 of their main tenets or main points. And I think that these 5 especially apply to Sabbath in a big way. Relationships are huge, even in Sabbath schools. We only get to see them once, but that hour is such a special time that we can have with them. And even when we can see them outside of Sabbath school too, we might see them at the grocery store or maybe at a church get together outside of Sabbath school. That eye contact, the smiles, the appropriate physical touch, when you notice things about them and about their life. Hey, I noticed that you really like this color. Or hey, I noticed that you play soccer. Is there any chance I could come to a game sometime? Or I noticed that. And those are the things that are really going to make a difference to them and make them actually want to listen to you more, which is always a good thing for the Sabbath school teacher. Kids fly on their strengths. And so when you notice their strengths and really play to that, I mean, I had a student in my classroom who was better at technology than I was. And I just willingly gave over my computer to him at any, albeit this is a 4th grader. 3rd grader, actually, I think. And he was like my little technology assistant. And I really didn't have to worry about anything because he just figured it out for me. It was great. So giving them appropriate can go a really long way, especially if students are having trouble focusing. If you're giving them a job and forming that out with them, that will really help. Choices is huge. I use this with my kids all the time. I'm sure that many of you do. It's very funny because growing up, or my father-in-law now is hearing me give choices to my son. He's like, boy, I didn't get that many choices when I was a kid. I'm like, yeah, well, it makes it a little bit easier when things aren't a choice. So when you give choices to their students, like, you don't care the order of the program. Do you want to do songs first this week, or do you want to do prayer time first this week? It doesn't really matter as long as we do both. That can really empower them to be more involved in the program. Make sure that they're acceptable choices, though, of course. As long as you say, what do you guys want to do today? Not a good way to start Sabbath school, because they will want to chat about this. and also give as many choices as possible so that when you do have to say, all right, let's rein it in, guys, let's get back on topic, they're more willing to listen to you because you've empowered them, and then they will actually empower you because they can do that. Next slide. Also, if you're thinking of any questions as we're going, make sure you jot those down because we're going to have a Q&A time at the end of the program. So we look forward to it if you have any questions. Problem solving is huge. This is a little bit more tricky to do in the short time period that we have for Sabbath school, but this could even be a quick conversation about like, hey, this problem, let's have a little breakout session after Sabbath school and see if we can figure out how to solve it and be able to take a little bit of time to do that. Because even if you invest time in those types of management things, it's going to make the Sabbath school for this quarter go so much smoothly for the rest of the time that you have those kids with you. So it's definitely the investment of time. Even if you don't get to everything that you had planned for that day, it's going to make it more effective. You can solve a problem any way you want, provided it doesn't cause a problem for anyone else, was kind of my mantra in the classroom. And that really empowers them as well. Having empathy and being understanding. I know, especially with the older students, it's very easy to stoop to sarcasm. And they relate really well to it, and they will feed it right back to you. And you got to know your kid, or some can, especially levels, better just avoid it for this part, because there are some that sarcasm is used in a very negative way. So I feel like my experience is in the Sabbath something that we does that. Next slide. All right, enforceable statements. I love this. So often we tell kids what we can do, what they should do. Like, you guys need to do this, or you need to do that, or stop that, which we can't really, if you stop and think about it, we can't really enforce that. Like, there's no way, especially in the day and age that we live in today, where there are no punishments that are appropriate just about, it seems at time, right? There's no discipline that's appropriate, especially in Sabbath school of all places. So when I switched it to think, what can I control? What can I do? So enforceable statements are what I can do. So I can teach quiet students. That's nothing they can argue with. They're not going to argue with that. That's a fact. I always say, ooh, I only choose quiet volunteers. I wonder which volunteers can be the quietest. I'll probably choose them. What else can I only argue after school? This is my favorite, because you may have those argumentative future lawyers for Jesus. You may have those in your class, and it's saying, you know, I would love to argue with you. It's actually one of my favorite things to do after Sabbath school, is the time that I have reserved for arguing with you. And if you'd like to do that, then you can. You have to be careful not to be sarcastic with that. I do actually enjoy a good argument discussion. And I did have kids come to me after school and say, okay, Miss Boy, what should we argue about? I'm like, all right, let's do it. And so the enforceable statements are what can do, not what they should do. They know what they should do. They're all in school. It's very similar to school. They know what they should do, but you can tell them what you can do and what you are going to do. And when you stick to your guns with that, then it's going to be a really powerful change, possibly, or maybe it's already going really well, but this is something that I know was a powerful change from my teaching. Next slide. All right. So thinking over those 5, and I put them there because I can't remember 5 things they're told to me. I'm a mom. I don't know if any of you have mom brain, dad brain, or just human being brain. And what is one of the strategies that we just talked about? Just kind of think about it, kind of grab onto it, maybe jot it down. Could you use in your Sabbath school, or do you feel like might be an area of growth that you could use in your Sabbath school? Mine that I'm working on right now is relationships. I've just started helping out in a junior Sabbath school at my church. And so I'm definitely trying to form relationships with those kids and get to know them better. And that's really important to me. So I'm working on it. Next slide. Yes, I have another one. Thank you, Angela. You're with me in the same club. Relationships, that's huge. Huge. And it's very hard to do sometimes because we only get to see some of them on Sabbath morning. And if they're not consistently coming to church, then maybe only once in a while Sabbath morning. And so finding ways to seek them outside of class even, like going to the soccer game, or, you know, inviting them over for Sabbath lunch or things like that would be a great way to form those relationships, them and their family. All right, so here are some other like miscellaneous teaching tips that I've come across over the years that have really helped me. And I'll kind of explain them briefly because I don't want to go over my time. But if you want to go into the next slide, there's a long list of them, but I won't go over them. So, also, just a side note, Rachel had mentioned that we're going to be doing another presentation tomorrow, I believe, and that's over the BBS. I'll be presenting again then, and I'll be applying a lot of these teaching principles to the art of telling stories. So I hope that I get to see a lot of you back tomorrow. That's at 4:50 tomorrow when we do that presentation, because this is very general and I'm having to go over it very quickly, especially if you're telling stories for children's story or for in your Sabbath schools. This would be, the presentation tomorrow will be really specific too. And I hope that you'll find at least something. The goal of my presentations is always to find at least one useful thing that you can apply tomorrow. Well, you're all at this conference. So next up, I don't know if you're tomorrow or not. All right, so the first one, my mom thought I should rename it for y'all, but y'all will know what it is when I say the evil eye. Some people call it the stink eye or the teacher look. It is a helpful thing, not using it sparingly, especially when you have someone who's misbehaving across him. Just give that no, and that is huge. And I have a fun story about that tomorrow. But that is like to use sparingly, but it is a really good teaching technique for across the room. Obviously, you don't want to always be glaring at your students. That is not what I'm saying. Once in a while, if someone's getting off base, just kindly give them a little look. I think is appropriate. As long as you know your overall tenor as a Christian is a happy one. The next one is moving to the student. And this is huge because a lot of times in Sabbath schools that I've observed or participated in, it's a lot of, we'll just use the name Stephen because that's my husband's name. And wouldn't it be fun to pick on him since he's not here? Stephen, sit down. Stephen, I'd like you to sit down. You need to be listening. Stephen, are you on the right page? And like all Sabbath school long, I don't think that the teachers realize that they're calling the kid out all Sabbath school long. And granted, they need little Steven needs that kind of attention, but maybe mixing it up and not always calling out and maybe moving toward the student instead. When a teacher gets closer to a student, they start to pay more attention because they're like, why is this adult standing next to me while they're teaching? This is interesting. And even if it's for a few seconds of peace, it's definitely worth it. And you will find that they're paying more attention. And you could just even stay there. And the next point is teaching by that student. You could just hang out there for a bit and teach the rest of the Sabbath school lesson from there if you needed to. Sometimes that's less of a distraction to your Sabbath school than actually having to move that student, which you might have to do. But the first thing that you could try first is moving over by them and teaching right by them and just hanging out there. And then eye contact is also huge. You're not always giving them the evil eye. Eye contact, just when you're talking, like talking right to the kids, is huge. And just the no head shake. It doesn't even have to be a little glare. It could just be like, and they'll get the hint real quick. Once again, they know what they're supposed to do. It's just whether they choose to do it or not, right? All right, next up, let's talk about this later. I like this one. Or I'll say, can you say that for your mom after Sabbath school? Especially if I know the mom, right? Or could you save that for maybe potluck? Like that would be a really great behavior for potluck. Try to say that for later, or try not to worry about it for now. Because a lot of times kids will start to go on and on and on about something. Like, let's not worry about that for now. I will later. And then actually do it, because you don't want them to think that you're being flaky and just putting them off. Actually do it. I actually had this happen last Sabbath at Sabbath school. Really wanted to tell me that something about the shape of the countries and Bible countries looking like a soldier. And so he did. He came right up after Sabbath school and showed me, and it wasn't far off. They did kind of look like that. I'm not going to be able to unsee that now. All right. So can you save that is a good one. Once again, not using sarcasm, but being genuine about it. Changing the location of the student is always an option. I know that probably in school you had teachers maybe even change your location. I know that I had that a lot. And maybe that was because I like to talk.
Oh, that was me a lot.
That's possible. Yeah, so changing the location of the student can be helpful. For Sabbath school, it depends on things. If you wanted to do a seating chart, you could. I think I try not to do seating charts for Sabbath school just because they have a seating chart all week. But I'll be like, students who listen are welcome to stay where they're sitting or something like that. Where it's not a threat, it's just this is what happens. Like, it's just a matter of fact thing. Using those I messages. What can you do? I can tell a story when kids are listening, or I can, and what can you do? Those are the enforceable statements. Or I feel like we need to be listening a little better. Just pausing and thinking about it. I think to myself and talk to myself in the third person out loud. Some people find that a little strange, but it works for me. Providing choices like we talked about before. Timeouts are not such a useful thing in the class, in the Sabbath school class, because where would they go? And you don't really want to send them away from learning about Jesus, right? But if there is an extreme case, I did teach a Sabbath school once that was probably the most unique Sabbath school I've ever taught. And I taught them for 2 years while we were in school. And yeah, it would have been nice to have at least a buddy teacher, where if I had one of my students who was really majorly misbehaving, and I'm talking about the level of rolling around on the floor when you're in junior Sabbath school and not listening, it would have been nice if I had like a buddy teacher who I could maybe send that student to their class for a while, where they can maybe still learn about Jesus, but have a little bit of a break from showing off for their friends. I never really understood exactly why she liked to do that, but that happened, and we came to an agreement. We'll talk about that a little bit. Use of leadership is huge, but that stems out of the relationship. You can't lead if the kids aren't going to follow. So you have to form that relationship to where they want to follow, where you want to lead. And then creating a plan with each student. And this is really powerful. Heart-to-heart talks is what my uncle, who's a 7th and 8th grade teacher, called it. And having a heart-to-heart talk, this is not in public, this is in private, pulling the kids even into the side of the classroom with the rest of the kids doing an activity. You're like, all right, we need to make a plan because this is just not working. Like, how can we make this work so that we can listen better during Sabbath school? Or how can we make this work so that we can stay on task during Sabbath school? Maybe I've had kids come up with like, let's do a special hand sign. And when you go, like when you pull your ear or tap your nose or something, then it's like a hint for me to remember that I need to focus or something like that. They come up with amazing little things because they know what works for them. They have to deal with that their whole lives. And so they know what works. And so just asking them and empowering them to help you help them will just be another step in forming that relationship with them in a huge way. All right, next slide. We made it through all those. There's a lot of interventions. I hope that you jotted a couple down that you liked the most, maybe even that you can apply to your teaching, your Sabbath school teaching. And I know that I need to work on a couple of them myself as I was reading over this presentation, like, ooh, that would have worked. I should practice what I preach. All right, miscellaneous teaching tips. If we want to advance a couple of slides, Rachel, for me. There we go, perfect. Oh, back one, sorry. There it is. Choose your battles. All right, this is huge. Because if we can't fix all of children's behaviors or all of the issues that they have, because we have just as many issues in one Sabbath at Sabbath school. So prioritizing is huge. Like, what is the one thing that you feel like you could do to have it be even more powerful next week? What is just one thing that you could do? And what bothers you the most? Because really that's one thing that you should probably do, because if you're being bothered or distracted as the teacher, then God is not able to use us as much as he could have if we would first give what bothers us to him, and then second, make a plan, choose that battle and figure out how you can make it better. And he'll help us. Thank God for that, because we can't do it by ourselves, that's for sure. Save your big stick. I hear this a lot in the classroom. I haven't heard it too much in the South. No, I've heard it in the South classroom too, come to think of it. And that is, okay, well, you guys, if you can't behave, then I'm gonna have to go get your parent. Or, oh, I'm gonna have to get Pastor Bill. Pastor Bill's gonna have to come in here and set you guys straight. Those can be effective strategies. However, I want to challenge you guys to save that for the really big problems. Because as soon as you give what we call the big stick to someone else, like the parents or the pastor, then you've lost it. You don't have the control of the classroom anymore. You've given all the power to someone else. I'm not saying that this is a power thing, but if you're threatening them with their parents or the pastor, then they're not going to listen to you, because they like to have a little show. Now, this I had a problem with growing up. I like to give people a show, and that was they poke me a little, poke me just a little, and then I put on this huge Michelle show. Some of you hopefully are nodding your heads. I can't see everybody while I'm doing my presentation here because my internet was not very good. But you'll just see the kid just, they just push the kids, and they know which kids will go off too. The other kids know, they've been practicing probably at school during the week. And they know if they just nudge them a little bit, they'll go off. And this is the same thing for adults. Kids know how to push our buttons. And when we allow them to do that, and when we threaten or even casually say, ooh, I might need to talk to your parents about that, which it's okay to communicate with parents. I'm not saying that, but we lose a lot of clout, and we lose a lot of their attention. They're not going to pay attention to us. They're like, oh, well, they can't deal with us. Haha, let's see what's going to happen next. It's the Michelle show. She's going to bring in the parents. She's going to bring in the pastors. This is going to be so interesting. And that just takes away from the message of Jesus. We don't want to do that. So trying to solve the problems with the student first and figuring out a plan before you bring in the recruits is always a good plan. Next slide. Wait time. This is huge. I see this everywhere. This is one that I need to work on myself. So often human beings are silence is so awkward to us. You're feeling awkward, aren't you? That was only like 30 seconds, but how we are. So don't answer your own questions. Make sure you wait for 5 to 7 seconds. Somebody else is going to feel awkward enough to answer it. And then hopefully when other kids see that they were brave enough to talk, everybody will start talking. And that's not all at the same time, hopefully, but you know what I mean. You get more participation. Voice, we're going to talk more about this tomorrow. So I'm going to skip over that one for now. But using voice fluctuations can really help keep the kids' attention. Being consistent. You may be the only consistent part of their life. I repeat, you may be the only consistent part of your life. How sad is that? But true. So true. Learning styles, being aware of how your kids learn. Some kids love craft. Some kids, every time you get out of craft, they're going to moan and groan. So mix it up so that you can have something for everyone. All right, next slide. Attention spans. We're going to talk about this tomorrow as well. They are way shorter than we think they are. Shortening by the second, I would say, even for adults. Attention spans are really short. And so being aware of that as you plan your lesson is huge. Even if it's doing a quick stand up, sit down, turn around, and then keep going. And also, as much as possible, having it based and having it be the kids looking up the verses and the kids doing active things and reading and participating is huge. All right, next slide. I'm actually out of time for this part, so we're going to skip over the next 2 slides. This is an excellent book by Ron Clark. He went into an inner city and did amazing change in the classroom. So especially if you teach in more of a city area, urban area, I would highly recommend any of his stuff for teacher tips. Next slide. All right.
This one,
so
sorry.
Again, we had I might have had them in the wrong order. Those were his 11 main things. So then if we could go back to the closing slide, I think I might have mixed those. Once again, thank you so much for coming. I see that many of you did comments in the Q&A. I'm going to be reading over those while I listen to the rest of the presentation, because we can all do 2 things at once. And hopefully we'll be able to come up with some solutions there. Once again, we'll be presenting tomorrow how to tell a story so kids will listen. And feel free to contact me at michelle@startingwithjesus.com, because I'd love to continue this dialogue with anybody who has questions or just likes to chat. Thank you.
Thank you. And this presentation is recorded. So for those who want to make sure you get the websites and materials, you can review the recordings as well. Thank you so much, Michelle. That was fantastic. I'm actually really excited. I learned some things. I'm going to have to work on my relationships with children for sure, because that's key. And I really appreciate that. Thank you. All right, Ruthie is going to talk for the next 5 minutes about virtual Sabbath schools, and then we'll have time for a Q&A. So Ruthie, the time is yours. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment.
Okay.
Highlight.
Well, actually, okay, because I'll need to share mine in a second.
Okay.
Or you can share yours and just go to the website, either way. Sorry.
Okay. You want me to go?
Yeah, because I'm not sure how to share mine. Sorry, guys.
Okay, go to the very bottom of your screen and you'll see a green button that says share screen.
Yep, got it. Okay, awesome. I usually use Google Meet, so. Okay, so I'm Ruthie Reeves. I am the president and founder of Starting with Jesus, and also my sister is Rachel Nelson's sister. So I'm trained as a speech pathologist, so I've worked a lot with kids and I enjoy, that's the area I love, working with kids. I've worked a lot with kids throughout my life, and I'm also a mom of 2 little ones. So that's a little about me. Now, Rachel already introduced you to Starting with Jesus. Starting with Jesus started back in 2020 when everything was shut down, and we started kind of as a stopgap for Sabbath schools, because there were a lot of, my husband is a pastor, and a lot of, I could tell that a lot of, if the pastors were struggling, because most churches didn't have even videos to record the service, then the Sabbath schools were going to be struggling, especially for the kids, because if church didn't have anything, then Sabbath schools definitely didn't have anything. So we decided to start something for the kids, a virtual Sabbath school program. And we have that was just meant to be a stopgap. It wasn't meant to be a replacement for Sabbath school, but something that's utilized until Sabbath schools would start. But now we have continued on, and it's a resource now for teachers and for parents and for kids that they can use throughout the week and on Sabbath, and in a lot of different ways. Things we have music, a nature and mission story.
The chat questions.
Sorry, are there questions in the chat? Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
I'm trying to, okay, so, and we have nature and mission stories, Bible story, craft, questions, question time, memory verse time, coloring pages starting again in March. We've had them in the past. We had to put those on pause for a bit, but we should be starting them again in March, that go along with the story every week, and memory verse worksheets. And so so you might be asking, so why would this be useful as a virtual Sabbath school? So one of the biggest ways that we've seen people using this is so let's say a child is not able to come to Sabbath school. They're sick, or they are unable to come that week. What we have people are doing is sending a link to the weekly to the virtual Sabbath school, so they can still participate in a way in Sabbath school. to be able to have that Sabbath school experience, to be able to still be there, to be able to still have the lesson, the memory verse, the Bible story, sorry, all the things that they would have in a Sabbath school is still there. Sorry, something in my throat. And something that is really helpful, even in the craft time, we try to make it available so that kids can create crafts with whatever around their house. So the craft time is, if we try to make it available, so for no matter what you have in your house, you should still be able to make that craft. Not every single week, but generally the crafts are we try to use things that are around the house. And the other way that we've also seen it used as a virtual Sabbath school program is if the Sabbath school is not able to meet that week, for instance, a lot of times churches have been shut down because there have been COVID outbreaks, or for whatever reason, they're not able to meet. And so what we've had teachers do is they'll actually, they'll watch the program. So I'll actually open this up really quickly so you can see this week's program. They'll watch the program and with the kids, and so you have the theme song and then the intro, and then you have a song service. And what you can do, sorry, try to close that. What you can do then is have them, you can mute everybody and they can sing along because the words are on the screen and they can sing along with the music. So you still have that music element. Then we have the theme song that happens every week. Then we have a nature story. So you still have that. The other thing as a teacher, that one way that you can use this, even outside of a virtual classroom, is we actually have a way that you can download the sections of the video. So let's say you wanted a sharing time that we've been using, like something on Sheep. We have sharing times. You can actually download that and share that in your Sabbath school if you don't have something that you are already using. We also, coming in March, we're planning on making the craft times available, all the things you would need to be able to make the craft time, so that you can do that in your own Sabbath school without having to even watch the video. You can actually create that craft together in the Sabbath school, either virtually or when you're together. So you have that. And then the coloring pages are really nice because you can send that to the kids. They can color it while they're watching it, using some of those. Some kids learn while they're doing things. Like if I'm listening to something, I have to be doodling or something to be able to I learn better when I'm doing things. So a lot of times if they're coloring a picture or doing something while they're listening, so they get that connection into it. Miss Michelle has the Bible story every week and she's amazing. We love her so much. And then at the end, another way that you can have them participate is during the question time. Every single week we have a question time after the Bible story. So I ask them 3 questions, and what the teachers will do is they'll pause it and they'll say, okay, it's time to answer the questions. She had just asked the questions. What do you think the answer is? And the kids will be like, oh, okay, I think it's this. And then they'll write the answers down and send us the answers. We have a Sabbath school that does this every week. I believe the kids are all over the world. And so one of the teachers actually has kids. It's kind of a virtual Sabbath school from kids all over the world that are answering the questions. And they send in this huge long list of kids' names who have answered the questions every week. And then we do a shout out in the Sabbath school program with the kids' names in it. So they can see their name the next week. Oh, I answered that question. I did that. And it's really cool because it's a way that they can actually participate in the program. And they love it. I've had kids come, oh, I'm so happy I saw my name in the list this week. Or they tell their parents how excited they are that they got to be part of the Sabbath school that's where they have kids all over the world watching, and almost like a big worldwide Sabbath school. The other thing we do in it is have kids send in their memory verses, and it's taking a while to load. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the share here. Okay. And we have them sending in memory verse videos so that they can actually memorize it. Encourages them to memorize their memory verse every single week, because it gives them something to look forward to at the end of the week with them saying their memory verse. So we have kids in that in the other Sabbath schools who will just send in the memory verses, and they're very excited about it. Okay. And okay. So there's a lot of
And-
different ways that you can use this. And yeah, I think that's all the time I have.
Thank you, Ruthie, so much. And just to connect everything, starting with Jesus and My Bible First, use the same materials. Starting with Jesus is all of the materials are completely free on Starting with Jesus. It is has a 501(c)(3). I didn't say that right. Anyhow, it's nonprofit and it uses the My Bible First materials, and it's a great resource for families with the My Bible First. So thank you, Ruthie. I appreciate that so much. And thank you so much, Michelle. That was wonderful. I'd now like to open it for questions. And I think there were some questions in the chat, Michelle.
Yeah, and I just say Ruby, and go ahead, and I see that Ray already gave you some awesome suggestions. A couple more that I had thought, because a lot of us have that kid. I have that kid in my junior early teen Sabbath
Michelle,
school
for those who
who
don't
likes to
have
talk.
Michelle, for those who don't have access to chat, could you
I can
repeat
do
the question?
Of course. So a 9-year-old Janine does really well with direct dialogue, but is very fidgety otherwise. Also likes to interrupt with comments about events, totally off subject, and wants to talk about them. Any ideas with this? Okay, I have a lot of people feeling that in their souls right now. It's a very really.
Michelle, you've sort of cut out. We can't hear you. Michelle has disappeared. Oh, that's very sad because I really wanted to hear how she'd answer that question. Well, there was an answer from Ruby. Thank you, Ruby. Suggestion I have for the intervention is to lower your voice or get quieter. Don't stop talking, but get quiet like you're trying to keep this a secret. Moving toward the student as you get quiet will also help. Excellent suggestion. Thank you, Ruby. Michelle, are you back with us? Sorry, you cut out completely. I apologize.
You're good. I'm sorry about that. So what I was going to say is I would definitely make the plan with that student outside of Sabbath school. So, or right after Sabbath school, right before Sabbath school, say, just one-on-one. Because the thing that I've noticed about these students is it annoys the other kids. And you'll see the other kids rolling their eyes. They're like, oh, there they go again. And one thing that you want to be really careful not to do is to do that. And so one relationship thing is you don't want to take the side of the other kids, but you do want the behavior to stop. So taking the kid aside, at the end of Sabbath school and everybody's just chatting, instead of be like, hey, dude, we need to make a plan, because we have a lot of stuff that we prepared and a lot of activities, and we want to make sure that we get to do all the fun things and really make sure that everybody has a chance to share and talk about Jesus. So make it really positive, and then say what can we do? Maybe a question, maybe you have a pad, you can put down, draw a picture to help you remember. Maybe even just giving them the option of having something they can fidget with. Not recommending fidget spinners per se, but something that or that they can jot down notes to help themselves remember. Because a lot of times they do just want to share with you, and probably at home they get the brush off a lot. I'll be honest, that's probably the kind of kid, because they're just constantly in your face, so they get the brush off a lot. So they think maybe the Sabbath school will be different. The other thing that I would say is with full class is do some definitions. We're just gonna define some things, and don't do this. Do it at the beginning of Sabbath school before he's even got going. You do it right after he's got going, it's gonna feel really preachy at him. But if you do it just before it's even started at the beginning of Sabbath school and say, hey guys, I just want to make sure that we all have the same definitions, because sometimes different people have different dictionaries in their brain as far as what different things mean. Okay, so in my brain, asking a question might be one thing, but in your brain, it might be something else. So I just want to, let's find for our Sabbath school, what does it mean to ask a question? What it means to a comment, and what does it mean to story? And those are the two things that often interrupt Sabbath schools: questions, comments, and stories. Stories are the ones that take the longest. A lot of times you're like, ooh, I want to hear that story so bad. Can you please tell it to me right after Sabbath school? That's the one that I often find myself having to cut off. And you can do it politely. Sometimes you just have to stop them, because they're going to derail the entire Sabbath school if you don't. But doing that, having the common definition and having the kids say, okay, what is the question? Well, they'll be able to tell you who and what, where, how, why. And I'm like, well, how many sentences is the question? One sentence. Okay, good. That's what our definition, that's what a question is. Okay, what is a comment? Okay, a comment is a 1 sentence something that has to do with what we're talking about. That's a comment, right? School. What is a story? A story is many sentences, many paragraphs, perhaps a page or two about something that may or may not connect. Because a lot of times it does connect in their brain somehow. It might seem like it connects, and maybe we cut them off before they get to the part about how it connects with our topic. They might have a connection in there somewhere, right? Making a plan, and then making common definitions for your Sabbath school. Anything that you can do ahead of time to set them up for success is huge, because a lot of times they just don't know what to do with all that energy, and so you need to help direct it in a positive direction. I don't know if it helped. I hope it did.
Thank you. That was a great, I loved that. Any other questions or comments or suggestions? You can type them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and answer, because I have trouble seeing everybody. So if you have a question, please just unmute yourself and feel free to ask it or type
Or
it in.
if you, yeah, I'm monitoring chat, so.
All right.
And thank you, Amy. So nice to have a fun team.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also wanted to do a huge shout out to Audioverse, because for them, starting with this wouldn't be what it is today either. We have very much to audio and to My Bible First.
Yes, thank you. Starting with Jesus is a DBA of Audioverse, which has allowed us to get our nonprofit status. So thank you. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody's input. Please stick around for the next session. It's going to be really exciting. You'll see some of us on that session. So I'm really looking forward